Good morning. We are now live streaming on YouTube. Welcome to members of the Landlord Services Advisory Board. My name is Terry Daubney. I'm leader of, I'm chair of the Waverley Tenants Panel, and I'll be chairing today. I'm assisted by our chair, Councillor Paul Rivers. And if we could just go around the room, starting from my left, where you could introduce yourselves, please.
Janet Crowe, co-portfolio holder for housing and councillor for Farnham and Cattershall.
Morning, everyone. Julian Hickson, Chair, if you could just turn your mic. Oh, thank you. Yeah, morning, everyone. Julian Hickson, Strategic Director of Housing, Communities and Environments.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rod Blackmore, a tenant panel member.
Good morning. I'm Annalisa Howson, the Assistant Director for Housing for Guildford and Waverley.
Morning. I'm Joe Warrener, Tenant Involvement Officer.
Good morning. My name's Andrew Lawton, Farnham Town, Webburn Ward.
Good morning, Alan Morrison. I'm councillor for Cranley West.
Good morning, I'm Jackie Keane and I'm a councillor for Shottermill, Critchmere, Haslemere.
Morning, my name's Josh Lindridge and I'm the Senior Home Choice Officer for Waverley Housing.
Good morning, I'm Hugh Waystaff, the Head of Housing at Waverley.
Hello, I'm Candice Keat, Financial Services Manager and Deputy Section 151 Officer.
Good morning, I'm Sharon Thompson, Service Improvement Manager.
Good morning, I'm Anna McGee. I'm a Service Improvement Manager for Complaints.
Good morning, I'm Jenny Rollins, Compliance Officer for Gas and Electrical Safety.
Good morning, I'm Richard Marsh, the M&E Manager for Waverley.
Good morning, my name is Kevin Glynn and I'm the Housing Data Analyst.
Good morning, Louisa Cotton, Operational Support Officer, Commissioning for Housing.
Morning, my name's Katie Riley and I'm the Energy Efficiency Project Lead at Waverley.
Good morning, I'm Ellington. I'm Energy Efficiency Officer.
Good morning, I'm David Williams and I'm a council tenant.
Good morning, I'm Dave Madams, Tenants Panel for Riverside Court. Thank you.
Morning, I'm Jordan Dadzi, I'm Housing Manager.
And Councillor Paul Follows, Leader of Waverley Borough Council.
Thank you very much. Yes, I can't see them. Yes, could the people that are on Zoom start with their names, please?
Good morning, I'm Esther Lyons, Housing Strategy and Enabling Manager at Waverley, currently working on the preparation for the regulatory inspection. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Damien Roach, I'm a Director at HQN. I'm here working with Waverley, helping for the regulatory inspection.
Hi, I'm Lydia de la Boja. I also work for Housing Quality Network, HQN, and we're here to feedback on the on our interim findings at the moment on the work that we're doing.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, good morning. My name is Wayne Hughes. I'm one of the HQN team and we're reporting back to you shortly.
Is that the lot? Thank you. Well, welcome. A big group today, lots of new faces, and we'll try and get around and use your names if we can, if we remember. Thank you. Decorations, are there any decorations today?
No declarations received, Chair.
And apologies?
So I've received apologies from Councillor John Rubini, Sally Purcell and Rob Blackmore from Tenants Panels.
Thank you. So now we go to the notes from the previous meetings. Are there anything anybody wants to mention or raise? And are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Any questions from public?
So there were no questions received from members of the public, and there were also no questions received from members.
Thank you very much. So we move straight on really to the Head of Housing Service Report. You.
Good morning, Board. Thank you, Chair. The first thing that's in the report is to confirm that we are being formally inspected by the Social Housing Regulator. And and Esther's just mentioned that she's been seconded to lead on the inspection. A lot of the work will be done in October, and it's going to, and I think it's just a highlight, it's going to be challenging and difficult for the team, but we are approaching this in a very positive way. We recognise that there are gaps in our service, and we've reported many times to the board on those gaps. And there's a number of today's reports, again, identify the gaps in our service. But there are some positive reports and feedback within our papers today, and I think we need to take that balance. One of the reasons that we do have gaps in our service have been the issue of recruitment and retention, and we've highlighted that a number of times to the board. But over the summer, we've had some fantastic appointments, and my paper is introducing some of those people that we've managed to recruit. So the first I just want to introduce, and I know we've had the formal introduction, is Sharon Thompson, the new Service Improvement Officer, who will lead after our response to the formal inspection. And I don't know if Sharon just wants a few words and to introduce herself, because she's going to be so key to this board. Sharon. Yeah, turn that on.
Good morning, everybody. As I introduce myself, Sharon Thompson, I'm very excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all. I have many years of experience in social housing, and I'm looking to bring lots of that with me. I will be working on the inspection with Esther, and then moving forward in terms of tenancy engagement, complaints, looking at recruitment within the team, around change management pieces, bringing in new IT system. Be also focusing on performance and many, many more things. So as I said, very excited to be here and looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
The next role I just wanted to introduce you is to Anna McGee. She's the complaints of we're dealing with complaints or making us around improving complaints, and we can come perhaps back to her role when we look at the data around complaint handling. Then to introduce Elaine around energy efficiency officer. She will be working around the data to ensure we've got accuracy data so we can make bids for different funding to improve the energy efficiency of our homes. And that will be working along with Katie, who received a number of reports around the work that they've been doing around using data and making bids, and successful bids for funding to improve the energy efficiency of our homes. The other new appointment is Jenny, the compliance officer around gas and electric safety. Jenny was going to say a few words. I don't know if we could put her slides up. Can you see? So Jenny, if you wanted to say a few words on because that is such a key role in terms of ensuring tenants are safe in their homes around electric and gas. Jenny, over to you.
Okay. Morning. As Hugh said, I'm Jenny Rollins and I'm the Compliance Officer for Gas and Electrical Safety. I've just put together a couple of slides and a few bits of information I want to give you about what we're doing in terms of gas safety at Waverley. So Can we move on to the next slide, please? It's all right. Okay, I can make a start anyway. So, first of all, we're focusing on two areas in gas safety. So there's the compliance side of things, which is obviously our legal requirement to do gas safety checks every year. And then also part of my role is about managing repairs. So first of all, if I go through the compliance part of things. So at the moment, we are responsible for producing or obtaining 4,252 LGSRs a year, and an LGSR is a landlord's gas safety record. We're required to do this every 12 months by law, and what that involves is our contractor Smith & Byford performing an annual safety check of the full heating and hot water system and servicing the boiler, and then they produce a certificate for us, which we're required to renew every 12 months. It's run on a 10-month MOT style programme. This was since a change in 2018 to Regulation 36, which allows landlords to undertake the LGSRs within a 10 to 12-month period after the previous check. And again, we are then able to maintain the renewal date. So it's a similar system to a car MOT programme. We obviously have some issues gaining access to some properties. It's quite few now, because we've got quite a robust process in place to manage no access. So it starts with Smith & Byford. They will send out 2 appointments and attempt 2 visits, and they start that at month 10. And then at 28 days prior to the due date, if there's no access obtained, then they will refer that back to Waverley, basically to me. And then I work together with the housing management team to work out if there's any issues with the tenants or any issues with gaining access. We actually produce 2 letters in compliance. So one of them we post at 28 days just to remind them to please book their appointments. And if we get to 14 days before the due date, we'll then produce letter 2 and a sticker, and then the housing officer will go and try and knock on the door and put a warning sticker on the door to say, you know, this is important, you must get your gas safety check done. And then during that time as well, we're all making regular phone calls and emails. So that's myself and the housing management team, just to try and establish if there's any vulnerabilities, any issues, or if, so yeah, and then we record that, take the vulnerabilities into account. So if somebody says, you can only come between 10 and 12, or, you know, I'm working, come last thing, or I need a housing officer there because I don't want to let anybody in at this time, then we can deal with that and help them out. So, and I also record any issues, so we can then engage with them earlier the next year if we need to. And the very last resort is we will take some tenants to court to gain a warrant of entry, so we can break in if necessary. It's very much a last resort to do the gas safety check. We have a monthly hearing in court, and I think the maximum I've taken is 5 this year in one hearing. And I think this year I think we've only executed 1 warrant. So even though we've got them to court, we've then got to the point where they've let us in or they've been there on the day. So it's actually never been necessary, apart from 1 case, to get in that way. At the moment, we are 99.93% compliant. That was as of yesterday, which means we've got 3 that are overdue. It's constantly changing, but as I say, there's been a maximum of 5. We've actually, for the first time, achieved 100% compliancy over several days this year, which has been quite good. So it's tough to maintain, but we are trying very hard, and it's working better than it used to, I think. And I think tenants are engaging a lot better now that we've got this process in place. The other thing we do is we have to maintain carbon monoxide detectors within the properties. So at the moment, out of the 4,252, we have under 30 properties, I don't know the exact number, that have no carbon monoxide detector or insufficient, because they should have one for each gas appliance. And I'm working with Smith & Byford to gain access and get those installed as well. Another thing that Smith & Byford have done is they've been reprofiling the servicing schedule, because when they took it on, the LGSRs, there were a lot of them that were due between January and April, which is obviously the time of year when there's a lot of repairs to be done and a lot of call in, you know. So what they did, they identified 800 properties and asked those tenants, and we wrote to them as well to say, please, can we bring your gas service forward? And they've so far, out of around 800 they identified, they've brought forward 395 services. So that's 395 that don't need to be done now between January and April. And the advantages of that are, obviously they've gone and done a gas safety check, and they've checked the heating system before winter. So that could identify any issues with the heating before the winter comes. And then obviously it frees up the resources for any other repairs that need to be done over those months when it's cold. Smith & Byford have also recently improved their booking system. They've introduced a system called Bob, which is an online booking system via an app. So that enables the tenants to book their LGSRs and repair appointments via the app. And that's reduced the number of calls to the contact centre by over 700 since May. So that seems to be working quite well for the tenants, I think. So managing repairs, obviously winter is approaching, so we're trying to get prepared for winter by so we can focus on getting repairs done in a timely and efficient manner. So what I do with that is I work with the contract manager at Smith & Byford, and we have a weekly operational meeting where I'm tracking some of the more major repairs. I can't track everything because there's so many come in, but I'm in constant contact with them over at Smith & Byford, and if any tenants call in, I can help to chase through their repair and make sure we've got, you know, if we need an electrician from Ian Williams or something like that, we can coordinate that so they can attend at the same time. And then I've got my colleague, Richard Marsh, M&E manager, who's got a lot of gas technical knowledge. So if there's anything I can't work on myself or I'm confused about, he can contact the tenant or talk me through or help out with that. My focus is mainly on properties where the heating and hot water is not working. So the more major repairs, you would say. And so I try and, those are the ones I focus on, follow those through to completion and escalate any issues if necessary. And also focusing on vulnerable tenants, so to make sure they know they're being prioritised. I've been dealing with a case this morning where an elderly lady's got her heating broken down. I think it's an electrical issue. So anyway, I've been following that through. And then the other thing that Richard's doing, which sort of ties in with what I'm doing, is the boiler replacement programme, because we've got a slightly ageing stock of boilers. So they do tend to break down quite regularly, but now we've got this boiler replacement programme where Richard's replacing 600 a year that are due to be replaced. And hopefully this should reduce the number of breakdowns and repairs. So that's it really. That was all I had to say. Rambled on for a while, but any questions?
Thank you. Yes, just a couple of comments really. The reports we're getting back from some of the tenants about boiler replacements are very good, that they've been very helpful, they're on time, they're meeting their date time and everything else. And also I've had the opportunity to use a system called Bob, and it works extremely well, and would really recommend it to any tenants that can access it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll feed that back to Smith & Byford this afternoon.
Thank you. Any questions?
So thank you. And thank you very much, Jenny. So I know last winter, especially Councillor Rivers had concerns about Smith & Byfield around their performance in terms of maintaining, and it was really good to hear the proactive arrangement for winter. But I think at this meeting we need to monitor how they're performing, and there's good communication and repairs are done in a timely manner. So that does then lead me, I mean, Richard's been mentioned a couple of times. So Richard has come in as our mechanical and electrical manager, and he's implementing the the strategy around boiler replacement that this board approved of. And as I say, we're replacing around 600 boilers a year over this 5-year period, where we should get all our boilers up to date. And we've discussed that in quite detail, that programme and the challenges around energy efficiency. So Richard is doing a grand job. We've also got a new compliance officer for water hygiene and lifts. Stuart Watson, he's on leave today, but again, this is an area that we have had a vacancy, and there is some work to be done around water hygiene, and we will be coming back to you on that. One person I haven't mentioned in the report is Steph Aves. She's returning back from maternity leave, and she will be leading on the project to improve our void relet times, and we can probably talk about that going forward. So that's an update on staffing, and I hope that it's good for the board to actually meet people, I feel, that will be delivering the services. One last thing is just an update on policies. We were due a new corporate Waverley ASB policy. That's been delayed for a number of reasons. So we reviewed our policy in terms of the legislation, and it's all up to date, and extended that for a further year or so. And we've also adopted Surrey County Council's domestic abuse policy as a sub policy to the ASB policy, and the principles of dealing with domestic abuse will be in line with the ASB policy, but our partners around domestic abuse is Surrey County Council, and a lot of the time if we have a domestic abuse case, we would refer it to Surrey County Council's outreach service. And we would work with them, so they would be the lead authority of dealing with domestic abuse in many cases. And in their policy, they've got a good definition of domestic abuse. So we've now got that policy in place, and if the board could note that, please. And if they want any more feedback on that, we could come back around that. But we can pick this up when the corporate ASB policy comes to this board for consultation. And I've been told that it's probably going to be in the new year. That's all I have to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh, and welcome to all those new officers that have come on board. We look forward to meeting with you individually in the future. Jackie, you have a question?
Yes, well, it's not a question. I mean, I'm absolutely delighted that you've got so many new officers, and we always welcome new officers. But I think it might be very helpful if we could have a list of who they are and what they do, because it's trying to remember all these people. So that's just a plea. If we could, as councillors, if we could have that list, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Andrew.
Thank you. Congratulations on building a new team. It's fantastic. Looking back at the last corporate performance report, the target is now 10%, and haven't been able to achieve that target for a while. What do you anticipate for the next quarter after this team is going to be in place, in terms of where you think we'll be in terms of colour between? I'm looking at the time taken for responsive repairs in particular.
Apologies. Perhaps I can pick that point up when we come to the dashboard, if that's okay, because there's a bit more data I can talk to. Is that okay, Chair?
Thank you. Yes, we can. Any further questions or comments? Thank you. So we now move on to item 7, which is the vacant tenant member for this board. As I say, we have a vacancy, and it's the proposal from the tenant panel that Mr. Robert Blackmore, who has been acting as a substitute member on the board for some time, and with Robert's agreement, that Rob is be approved by members as a full member of the Landlord Services Advisory Board. No objections?
No objections, Chairman, and I'm very happy that you should join us, Rod.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob, and you'll be busy. So we now move back to you, please, for the housing performance dashboard.
Yes, Chair. Can I just remind the board how we've got to the dashboard? The corporate performance report was taking so long to get to this board that the data really was a bit out of date. I mean, it could be 2-3 months relevant data. So you worked with the service improvement team, the board, about having a dashboard where you could see the key areas where there was non-performance particularly, and some areas of good performance. So this is the purpose of the report. I mean, there is a lack of context because we produce it literally a couple of days before the papers go out, and we try to give the context in terms of the verbal feedback we give at the meeting. I think this might be something with Amy now. Amy Walton, who developed this with you, has left the organisation. It may be something we need to pick up with Sharon if this is really is delivering what you want, and you feel you are able to scrutinise the service through this dashboard. But so we need to pick that up perhaps in the next couple of months going forward. So the dashboard covers a number of areas: voids, complaints, responsive repairs. And can then come back to the councillor's questions on that, compliance, and then compliance fire risk assessment actions. The voids, as we can see, are still not in a good position. This graph is measuring the average days to relet, i.e. from the time the key is returned to us and the time we actually get a tenancy date. We, just literally a couple of years ago, we were in the mid-20s. So something drastic has happened for our poor performance, which we really need to understand. And as I've said earlier, we've got Steph Aves coming back, who will be leading a project and will be feeding to the board on how we're going to make improvements in this area. I don't know if anyone's got any question on the voids, particularly. I'll go to the next area. So complaints. Our performance around target times is very poor. 50% or 60% in total are being answered last month, and that's in line with the trends that we've had for the last couple of months. So as I've mentioned, we've now got Anna on board, and her key role with working with Sharon is to improve this turnaround time and then reduce the number of complaints that are being escalated to level 2, i.e. we resolve the matter at level 1. And again, so this is something I think the board should continue to monitor in relation to Anna's work on this. As I say, we clearly know that this is an area for improvement and has been highlighted by the ONS committee as well. I don't know if anyone's got any queries or questions on that. The next area is responsive repairs. So at the last meeting, we had the executive working group's report, and we had the promises that where Ian Williams were going to make improvements. We still need the action plan from that working group report still needs to come to this meeting, and we will bring that next week. But since then, their performance has deteriorated greatly. I think they had a really rough August in terms of they had leave, and then also they had they had a number of people leaving the organisation as well. So I mean, the one that really highlights is this minor works, and this is probably where more than one operative is needed. 88% of their jobs are now overdue, i.e. over 28 days. So I don't know if the councillor wishes to ask this question at this point, but in terms of the getting to 10% overdue, I think we're far away from that at the moment. I can't give you a time. And as I say, we met with the director of Ian Williams this week, and clearly they need to deliver some kind of improvement, or we need to have a backup plan. Councillor, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Well, exactly. Well, clearly a lot of this seems to revolve around the contractor. So have these conversations started, and are there any plans in place? Does he have a plan how to improve? Perhaps you can just give us an overview where you are on that, because obviously it's a big challenge at the moment.
Yes, so these conversations started, I say, a while ago, and a number of months ago, we've been quite telling them this performance is not great, and they've accepted that, and they have replaced the management team within 4-hour contract to bring improvements. I mean, it is going to make time for them to bring these improvements, but what has actually happened, because of other issues during August, their performance has actually got worse. And that's what we got to rectify. So there is an action plan. There is a commitment from Ian Williams. But at the moment, we're not seeing any kind of actually, the change we're seeing is a deterioration in their performance, i.e. the number of jobs that are over 28 days. And we've still got the issue of the complaints and complaints handling. So there is a lot of work being done on this. And really, we need to see what extra steps we need to take to get them to improve if there is no improvement in the next coming months. But as I said, it's all been documented. We're meeting with them. We have a plan. They've got to implement it, and we need some results. I think it's a little bit like a ship. It's going to be slightly slower than we would wish, and it's really disappointing that there has been this deterioration over the summer. I think over the 2-3 months, we need to see an improvement. Otherwise, we really need to look at different ways to solve this.
Gillian, I believe you were coming.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, can I add to what Hugh said? There is no way in which the performance of Ian Williams at the moment is tolerable. It's awful. It needs to improve. And we have been working with them to improve it, but actually it's got worse. So we now need, I mean, I think Hugh is right, we've got an action plan, but we now need to see very, very rapid improvement. And if we don't, we need to really change what we do. So one of the things I'm keen for us to do is to get a panel of residents to meet with Ian Williams, which they've agreed to talk about where the common issues are for residents and how we can jointly tackle those. I think that's massively important that we do that. Ian Williams are a national contractor, so for them to be able to say, actually, we don't have staff, we don't have enough resource to be able to put to that, it's not good enough. They've contracted with us to provide a service. So we will be wanting assurances about how they're going to do that. And if they have to divert attention from other contracts they've got elsewhere, then that's what we'll be expecting them to do. We do need to turn up the heat on them, I'm afraid. We have been working with them. We've been giving them every opportunity. It is not working. And we are going to be turning up the heat over the next few months. And we will be looking not just on kind of monthly performance, we'll be looking at daily and weekly performance to see where we get to. So I am sorry that performance is suffering and that residents are suffering poor repairs performance in a number of areas due to our contractor and despite our best efforts. So we will be stepping up, make no mistake, we'll be stepping up our actions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your reassurance on that.
Thank you. Gillian, we've arranged a tenant panel to see some of the officers next week at our meeting, but maybe we could talk about that a bit afterwards.
Love to, Chair.
Jackie.
Thank you. Well, I mean, when Williams first came to us, we had massive assurances from them that this was a contract that they could actually carry out, and it would be a good assurance. Now, we've had promise after promise from Williams, and they've let us down time and time again. And that's not because of Waverley trying, it's because they're incompetent in what they're doing, basically. Their staff turn up at residences, they do half a job, they go away, they don't come back for weeks and that. And so half the time the job's not very satisfactory. You know, I have tenants that are complaining about the work and they have to go back and do it again. So I really feel that, you know, yes, we have to put the heat on them, but it reflects so badly on Waverley. I mean, the BBC have been live streaming that, you know, Waverley are employing a contractor called Williams that is so poor. Now, you know, this is so bad for Waverley Borough Council to have that sort of connection. And if they can't do it, have they overstretched themselves? You know, have they got too many contracts going at one time and they're trying to keep them all in line? Because this is a problem that I think they probably have, that they've taken on these contracts, but they cannot commit to them. And I think this is something we maybe should be asking them, you know, can they carry out the work for our council to a good degree, and our residents can be happy with that, because I don't think the residents are happy at the moment. So I think it's something maybe that they should be questioned on. Can they carry out a contract to a good standard?
Thank you, Councillor Keane. And I think that clearly you're right. And I think that has obviously something that we have questioned them about. And they give assurances, and obviously at the moment are not meeting those assurances. I think it's clearly a concern. I mean, construction sector generally at the moment, recruitment is difficulty, but that, you know, we would say that's not necessarily that our problem, that's their problem, and we still need that good quality of service. I think we do need to be clear about what their long-term commitment is to us. Clearly, we don't want them to collapse as an organisation. That would be devastating, not just for us, but for other councils and housing organisations across the country. But clearly, if at some point we might need to re-provide, we know that in order to get good quality services to tenants, that's a long process. It's not an overnight process. So, you know, we have a long-term contract with Williams. Our commitment has got to be to make it work in the first instance. But yes, we do need assurances that they are able to continue to meet the terms of that contract, and where they're not, how we can work together to see if there's a interim or shorter term solution in maybe a number of areas. So those are ongoing discussions, and you're quite right to raise it. Thank you.
Is there any financial penalty for Ian Williams missing their targets? And also, have we got a plan B? Because obviously I don't see the contract being renewed, but from what you've just said, if Ian Williams gets into difficulties, do we have a plan B to get another contractor? Have we started working on that as a potential?
I mean, Hugh might want to come in on the contract terms, which I'm not familiar with. I imagine there are penalties in terms of performance, but that's not always easy to, as you're aware, probably not always easy to make those happen. But where we can, we do, I think, is the question. Difficult to work on a plan B, because clearly that plan B would involve us talking to other contractors in the middle of a contract period, which is quite a long-term contract. I think, again, what we would want to do is look at if there are particular areas of stress where at any point, and this is a general point, not about Ian Williams, but generally on a contract, if there are points of stress and we know that the contractor might struggle to do that, we would look for their permission to bring in a third party in some of those particular areas. That's as a general point. I'm not suggesting we've got to that point with Ian Williams or at that point, but that's one option that we would do. I mean, the nuclear option of looking for a complete replacement contractor is not one you can generally start mid-term. As I say, that takes 2 or 3 years to do. And interestingly, if any major contractor goes bust, that has an implication across the whole sector and the whole industry. So we absolutely hope that doesn't happen.
Can I just ask, I mean, if the scenario was that we had to bring in a third party, so to speak, to get some of the work done, I mean, that actually is an added cost to Waverley, surely?
No, I mean, again, we're not at that stage, and that would be only by agreement with Ian Williams, so we'd have to work that through. Clearly, we would then be paying the contractor the money we would be paying Williams for that amount of money. But of course, they would probably charge a higher rate because of the economies of scale.
No further? Thank you. I think as a tenant, it's you know, we've recognised this for some time, the issues, but it's pleasing to know that the managers and councillors are now supporting this move, and we want an improvement, not necessarily to change the contractor, but to improve the contractor. Thank you. So, sorry.
So if we go back to the report on the compliances at the 31st of August, the one to highlight is the electrical certificates, 5 years. Again, that's part of Jenny's work. She's been working really hard on that to put that figure down to 0. Non-compliant is including certificates that aren't correct, that have been completed incorrectly. So it's not all about access. So we're now, today or yesterday, we were down to 211 properties without a compliance certificate. And that covers a various of issues. Fire risk assessments, I'm going to come back to that on the next slide, but in terms of fire risk assessments, so for every common area and in the senior living schemes, we need to carry out a fire risk assessment and identify any measures we need to improve the safety of those blocks. So we're up to date on completing those, where we've got a challenge around actions, and I'll come back to that on to my next slide. We're also got water risk assessments also we need to do on certain blocks, and that's around water safety, specifically around where there's shared water tanks. And we've got 7 risk assessments still to be completed. And as I say, that's a priority for the new officer to pick that up. And that can be, again, that can be related to access, because this is not the senior living schemes, this is around individual people's individual homes or blocks of flats. Lifts inspections are all up to date, and we've got a figure at the end of August, 31 properties have not got carbon monoxide detectors. And again, that's a priority to get those, as Jenny said, working with the contractor to get that down to 0 by the end of September, if possible. So, fire risk assessment actions. So, when we've had really big high-risk issues from the fire risk assessments, we've reported extensively to this board and worked with tenants, specifically Riverside Court. When we find the issues there, we gave full reports to this board, and we worked with the residents around making them safe there. What the HQN report, the feedback we've received from them is about we need to be a bit more open around or be more transparent around the other actions that come out from the fire risk assessments. I know this doesn't give you much context, and I think we need to work on this, what you need around fire risk assessments. But currently, this is the number of actions that we're recorded that still need action from the fire risk assessments. Now, is that good or bad? I mean, and that's something we need to work on, because we have had, because the senior living schemes, we carry out risk assessments every year. The general needs schemes in the community, we carry out every 3 years. And we just had a tranche of risk assessments that have just been completed. So there are a number of actions to be done that need to be followed up. So we need to do some further work. But I think from the feedback from the mock inspection, I thought it's just to make the board aware that we have a number of fire risk actions that are outstanding. We do have a fire consultant reviewing the actions to make sure any high risk ones are actioned immediately. And I say we do need to report going forward further on this area. So I apologise for the board that we haven't been giving you these figures, and as I say, going forward, we will provide this to you. But that's the end of the dashboard report, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from you? Thank you. So we'll now move on to the Easy Move presentation, and that's from Josh, I believe.
Hello, so my name is Josh. I'm from the Home Choice team. Is the presentation available for the screen by any chance? Sorry. So I'll get onto the Easy Move specifically in a minute, but we're from the Home Choice team. We focus on transfers between social housing properties. That can be Waverley properties or housing association properties within our area. And we will administer the choice-based letting system. For those that are unfamiliar, that's the process in which tenants or applicants can bid on other social housing properties that they would like to move to. We have a lot of focus on making sure that we're finding properties that are suitable for applicants, whether that's because they need more space or they just have particular needs where they need a particular type of property. And that links nicely in with our Easy Move scheme. The focus of the scheme really is to find the right fit for houses, but that is often a downsize if people are unable to manage their homes. Rowena Fleming in our department, I'm here basically taking credit for a lot of the work that she does in our department, but she is our Easy Move officer. She looks to identify tenants that may consider downsizing and looks to help them with the entire process. And I hope today to highlight the importance of this scheme and the benefits that it can bring to multiple households across our borough. So a lot of the work we do in the Easy Move scheme is about making it an easier move for our applicants and taking down some of those barriers to moving. A lot of applicants, they already know and they want to move, but when they think about the process, actually it is quite stressful, and we want to remove some of that stress. Specifically, this scheme is designed with the tenancy standard in mind. It's created with the guidelines set up by the regulator for social housing. We want to work closely with our tenants. A key part of the regulation shows that we need to provide a tailored service. And that's something I emphasise today, is that we will have discussions with our applicants and finding out really what they need and where we can help and give them the best service possible. But we also need to address under occupation, overcrowding, and making best use of our stock. So homes across the borough, from memory, I think we have 4,776 properties, not including our shared ownership properties. Of that 4,776, we only have 34 four-bedroom houses. And that's not houses that are available, that is in total across the borough, and these 34 are currently all occupied. We have some more three-bedroom homes, but again, we have a lot of families that are needing larger properties, so we still need to make best use of that stock. Then when it comes to our waiting list, I won't get into bandings today, but the standard banding for the majority of our applicants is a C band. We have 1,110 active applications as of the end of June, which is a lot. Now, if you're on a C band, you could be waiting 3 to 5 years to get a three-bedroom property. And that's if you're looking across the borough. If you have reasons where you need to stay to a specific area for family reasons, or your child attends a very specific school and you want to remain close by, it can actually extend that. And then we move on to four-bedroom properties, because of the number we looked at before and how few there are, it's 5+ years as a C band, or a standard banding. And again, that's not accounting for the fact if you are looking for a very specific area. And again, that's why we really want to promote. We love talking about the Easy Move scheme, because it seems like a very win-win situation. There is a housing need, and we're also improving the lives of our tenants when we complete these types of moves. So there are challenges that we face in helping our tenants, and challenges for tenants when they are considering a easy move or downsizing. Understandably, tenants have an attachment to their home. If they've lived there 30, 40, 50 years, they've raised kids there, they have happy memories there. The idea of moving for some people, even if they are struggling in their home, they don't want to do it, and I get that. There's also the logistical stress of a move. If you've lived somewhere for 30, 40 years, you haven't had to deal with removals companies for 30, 40 years. And therefore, it's a lot of the time, don't know where to start. And then you start thinking about arranging the stuff for your new property, decorators, and all those little things that you haven't had to think about in a very long time. There is a cost associated with moving as well. And family members themselves, we've had cases where the applicant is quite keen to downsize, but the family members, and again, I do understand it, they have their own memories attached to that home and they don't want to lose it out of the family. And then another big one is decluttering. If we're going from a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom home and we have years worth of property that's been built up inside the home, how do you decide what to keep? And this is where that Easy Move comes in, and we're going to try and remove some of those barriers. When we speak to people, they know that the move is good for them, but we need to help them get there, and we need to help take away those stresses. So we can liaise in the Home Choice team with the removals companies, with the decorators. We have good links to a lot of people that are quite popular in our area, and we can do that on their behalf. Meeting with tenants and family to discuss a potential move. If they have any questions, we quite regularly will go out to somebody's address to do the form with them and just provide that more personal service. And bidding on a tenant's behalf, some people in this room may have used our online bidding system. It's not bad, but for some people, it's just not possible, whether it's because of access to a computer or just understanding the process. If we need to, we can get a specification of what somebody's looking for and place those bids on their behalf. Again, that's another barrier we can take away. And then priority bandings, we have a system of A to C. As I said before, the C banding is the standard banding for the majority of our applicants. But we can provide priority banding for people that are looking to downsize. The way that we would see it would be, if we have somebody who is telling us, I would like to give you this 4-bedroom house back, we want that back as quickly as possible, because they are, A, not managing in the home, and in all the while I have families in the wings that are desperate for this house. Why would we provide a standard banding when actually it's a win-win to get them moved quicker? They have a better quality of life, and I can also turn to the Joneses and say, I have a house that you can bid on and you do very well here. Every move impacts not just one household, every move impacts 2. So I'll come on to some figures for moves later, but double it when we're talking about how many families have been positively impacted by this scheme. Discretionary housing payment I've got up there. We can, not alongside liaising with removals companies, there are certain funds, if you're eligible, that we can help with the cost of it. Again, going back to the cost barrier for some people. And we have a tenancy audit officer. We try to be quite data-led in how we identify people that may be eligible for as an easy mover. The tenancy audit officer visits all of the Waverley tenants across the borough. We have a lot, so it takes a while. So if you are a tenant, you may or not have met our tenancy audit officer yet, but they have training in identifying people that they feel may benefit. It's not a conversation we're going to have with everybody, but if they feel that there's a need for it, they will bring this up. And if they are interested, we are not going to force this on anybody whatsoever, but if they are interested, they then get in touch with us and we can take over the process from there. And again, I will emphasize it, we will tailor this service to what the easy mover needs. We really want to focus on the needs of the applicant. And cash grants. So cash grants are another benefit, and they're probably the most well-known aspect of easy moving. You know, I often get people on the phone saying, is it true if I move, you'll give me money? And essentially, yes, it is with certain conditions. So for those who are in a 2-bedroom home and say, Josh, I would like to downsize to a 1-bedroom, we can provide £2,000 towards the aspects of moving. For 3 to a 1, it's £2,500. For a 4, one of those gold dust houses, 4-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom, we can provide a cash grant of £3,000. I have 4 to 2 up on this slide. We don't often allow moves to a 2-bedroom property, but because of how limited our 4-bedroom houses are at the moment, we have provided some discretionary decisions in the past for those in a 4-bedroom to allow a move to a 2-bed, and have provided £1,000 as a cash grant. The cash grants are available only to Waverley tenants who are giving Waverley back one of our properties. We do provide some of the benefits to housing association tenants, such as priority banding, because we do see the greater picture in our borough of needing to house our applicants. But the cash grant itself is only available to Waverley tenants. Just out of interest, because we're always looking for feedback, has anyone had any feedback from either yourselves or from tenants about the amounts that we're providing for cash grants? I'm just interested to know if people have an opinion on whether they think this is enough. I'll take that as a good sign. So the cash grants, they can be used for things like decorating in the property before they get there. And again, that's part of the service where we'll liaise with those contractors. We want to have it so that tenants, if they want us to help them do it, can walk into a property, it's already painted, it's already carpeted, and anything else that they'd like. And we don't want people having to front up money. Again, that's another barrier to moving. We don't want them having to front up money to facilitate this move. So if we can take it from the cash grant, think carpets that they want to buy and things like that, then actually nothing's come out of their pocket.
Question there. Are we still looking at carpeting if it's in good condition, leaving it there?
Yes, so we will, I used to be a housing officer, so I used to check for the home choice team, funnily enough. So when we do our end of tenancy visits, absolutely. We do have quite a high threshold because we don't want to be, and especially when things get moved. So we may do a check and then somebody moves a wardrobe and actually there's a big burn mark underneath it. But as a general rule, if we've had a very good condition carpet, we will leave it. And again, that cost can then be passed on to the incoming tenant who does not have to buy carpet. And we can, because of the extra service we're providing under the Easy Move scheme, we can actually go and ask them rather than just guessing. So we've had plenty of instances where we say, there's a carpet here, would you like to replace it? Or here's a photo, would you like to keep it? So that's just the extra service that the Easy Move scheme will provide. So yeah, and after providing anything like carpets, things like that, any money that's left will go to the tenant to do with as they please. So completed Easy Moves. I did this presentation in June and we'd had 8 by then. I know for a fact, mainly because there's one that I assisted with last week that we've done more by this point. I think we're probably nearer 13, 14 now. Last year we did 30 and the year before we did 29. But that's moves completed. So when we're talking about households that are assisted, we can double those figures because not only have we helped somebody into a more manageable property and improve their quality of life, we are moving families into that larger home that are in desperate need of that space and until now have been trapped in what is sometimes unaffordable privately rented accommodation or a property that's too small for them.
Sorry interrupting you
No,
again.
please go ahead.
With the older tenants that want to downsize, do you find that some of them want to go into the sheltered accommodation, which of course would free up 2 houses?
Bang on, yes. And it's a dream when we have somebody who would like to move into the shelter because actually for them, there's a benefit in if they recognise that I have certain needs that and I would suit one of our independent living schemes, then yes, brilliant. And actually, because there are less people bidding on our independent living schemes because of the criteria for age or mobility need, they are some of the fastest moves that we complete. But I will say probably our most popular properties tend to be our bungalows with wet rooms, understandably, because it's a more manageable property. You still get a garden, it's all on the ground floor. But yes, we do get some tenants wanting independent living. I would probably say the majority have their eye on a bungalow, however. Yeah. So yeah, so that's completed move. So I just want to give an example on the next slide, if that's all right, about a really typical but really good case for Easy Move. So Mr. B was 73 years old. He'd been living in his 3-bedroom house with a dining room in Hazelmere, and he'd lived there for 37 years with his wife. They'd raised their kids there. But 2 years prior to contacting us, unfortunately, his wife had sadly passed away. And he was finding it increasingly difficult to manage this home by himself. The stairs were becoming a bit challenging, and also just the general upkeep of the house, the garden, it was becoming more difficult. And Mr. B was very good in recognising this early. We do have some people that consider the scheme, but because of some of the barriers we talked about earlier, they can leave it too late. And I've had sadly cases where I met this lovely chap in Cranley, and I was desperately telling him I can help you however you'd like, we can get this move done. But by the time he finally decided it was right for him, he was quite ill and he sadly passed a few weeks later. And this is why we want to get the information out as soon as possible, because we need people to find out about this scheme, and if it's right for them, move before in some cases it is too late to do so. But Mr. B contacted us because he had a newsletter through the door explaining a bit about the scheme. And it was a typical case of he knew he needed to move, but the barriers were there and he didn't know how to get started. He didn't know how to call the removals company. He just needed that extra bit of help, including bidding. So Rowena visited him at his home, went through the application process with him and filled out the form. And when he applied, he was actually given, because of the size of the property, 3-bedroom with a dining room, and an A band to go and bid on properties. And it was a very quick turnaround. By the time we got him bidding, and we did the bidding for him, just called him when he won anything. He told us what kind of property he liked. And we just notified him when he won a property. He viewed it, he loved it, he took it. And we, before he moved in, liaised with contractors of his choosing to arrange things like carpets, and took that out of his cash grant. Anything that was left, we paid to Mr. B. And he's currently in a 1-bedroom bungalow with a garden, manages his home brilliantly, and until recently was actually giving us updates about what he plans to do design-wise, which was really nice. And to emphasise the fact that there's 2 households that are being helped here. Within 2 months of him moving out of this 3-bedroom home and it going through the voids process, we had a mum with her children move into the 3-bedroom home with a dining room. One of those kids was quite severely ill, and the improvement to the quality of their life, having that space and having the dining room was huge. So it's that nice warm fuzzy feeling when I talk about Easy Move, because we've got 2 households there that are, their quality of life's improved massively. And we work hard in the Easy Move scheme, but in the context of it, in the grand scheme of it, providing somebody a bit of assistance with talking to contractors is not a hard job to do. We just need people to be aware of this scheme. So if you, in your roles day to day, find somebody who you think might benefit from this, or if you yourselves might benefit from this scheme, you can come and talk to us. We have our email address, which is homechoice@waverley.gov.uk, and our extension 523551. If you're calling from outside, just remember to add the 01483. But yeah, thank you for letting me talk about Easy Move today. Much appreciated. If there's anyone got any questions, just let me know.
Andrew.
Thanks, Josh. It's really interesting. Just using your example of Mr. B, I'm thinking about the situation from the other side, and clearly you have families who are wanting more rooms and on one side, and you've probably got a number of people in, like in Mr. B's situation, where his family have grown up, so therefore they have rooms which they're now not using. Are you relying on the tenant coming to you to say they want to downsize? Or is there a way of you finding out if they have rooms which are in excess? And if there's the second, is that something you feel that you can apply pressure on them to move? Or in other words, it's not a good use of assets to have empty rooms in the scheme of things when other people are desperate?
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant point. So we try, as I said before, we try and lead with data. You're absolutely right. We do have a list of under occupiers, which was provided to our tenancy audit officer recently. So we will visit all types of property to make sure that they're keeping in line with their tenancy, but if there's anything else that we need to provide as a housing service, that we do so. But we do have a separate list where we can visit those who are under occupying their properties. Now, there is a balance to be had, because we have tenants, quite rightly, with lifetime secured tenancies, and we are not in the business of forcing anyone out of their home. If they don't want to move, absolutely fine. Our responsibility is only to make them aware of the scheme and to promote the benefits. But absolutely, we do have a responsibility to highlight those that are under occupying. I think sometimes our main problem is not the scheme itself. A lot of people we explain the scheme to, and they go, "Oh, I didn't know about this. This is fantastic." It's making people aware, and this is why we want to do things like this today, and want to make you guys and just refresh your memory on the scheme, because I'm sure a lot of you already knew about it. Because when you're talking to tenants, the awareness is what we want. And yes, we have a responsibility. It's just walking that line between making sure people don't feel like we are kicking them out of their house. But yeah, no, you're totally right. We will identify those people with the data that we have on our tenants list.
So in that situation, if Mr. B wanted to keep the size of the house he's got, and is as a single person, and he's in a 3 or 4 bedroom house, if he doesn't want to move, then that's his prerogative, is it? Even if you know there's another family who are desperate for more rooms.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Because there's lifetime secure tenancies, and that's why the incentives and removing the barriers is important. And we had people talk about, well, why are you paying people to move? But the way I would see it is that actually we're not paying people because a lot of it is covering costs, like new carpets, which they otherwise wouldn't have to do. But if we also think about it in the grand scheme of the cost to the public purse, in that if we had to build more houses, if we think about the cost of that versus the cost of providing, say, £2,500, which actually isn't all pocketed, it is to provide new stuff. Yeah, absolutely. But no, you are right in that if Mr. B did not want to move, Mr. B would not. Wouldn't have to move, and he would remain at that house. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just ask, I seem to remember at one time that there used to be, people used to have to pay an extra charge if they had a separate, a bedroom that was empty and it was one person living in it. Does that still apply?
Yeah, the bedroom tax. So, and that's another reason people want to move, because when they found themselves alone in a larger property, if they're in receipt of universal credit or any kind of benefit, it can impact the rent that's covered for them. So for some people who are on a lower income, actually the deductions to their universal credit, because they have spare rooms and because their class is under occupying, means that their rent's not covered. So they come to us, or if we've not approached them already, and say, look, I need to move because this is actually costing me money to live in this property. So no, absolutely, totally right.
Just a very quick one. Thank you for the presentation, by the way. Looking at it again, as Andrew was doing from the other side, there may, when a 3-bedroomed or 4-bedroomed, wouldn't that be lovely, house was available in the future at some stage, you might well have more than 1 or 2 people keen to move into it. How do you assess who wins? This might be an issue for another meeting, but I'd be interested to know.
No, brilliant question. So I referred back to our banding scheme earlier. So the majority of our applicants are on a C band. That is when there's no special circumstances such as immediate risk requiring a move. But we do have a set list of criteria which mean that people might be prioritised in their applications, whether that is like a safeguarding risk factor or in instances here where we're looking at downsizing somebody and there's a benefit to the wider applicant base for them to move faster. So absolutely right in that when a property then becomes available, we have far more people wanting that property than we have properties. On average, we'll advertise about 10 to 15 properties a week, but not all of those 10 to 15s are 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. A lot of them will be 1 bedrooms. So if we think about, let's say, I don't know, a good portion, let's say even if it was a third of that active applicant list are looking for a 3-bedroom property, but let's say 5 of the properties we're advertising that week are 3 bedrooms. That's a lot of people competing for a very small amount of property. So the banding is one way in which you prioritise. The higher your banding, the higher you will finish. But it's also registration day to try and keep it fair for those that have been waiting longest. So if we have applicants that are on the same banding, those that have been registered longer will finish above those on the list. And the last caveat to that would be there are certain properties we will advertise with priority to certain people, such as a mobility need. If I have a 1-bedroom bungalow with a wet room that I'm advertising, it is best use of our stock that it go to somebody who requires a ground floor with wet room, because there is a limited amount of properties they can bid on. They cannot live in a 2nd floor flat. So we do provide discretion alongside the banding for those as well.
Sorry, being a pain. No. If for instance you get somebody who's got a vulnerable person who needs, they say they need a 2-bedroom house because they need to have a carer in, do you accept that?
We do. There is a threshold that needs to be met in terms of supporting evidence. So if we have, and we do have tenants where they have a registered live-in carer, and in that case, they will be considered in the bedroom allocation. So if somebody has a 3-bedroom house, they want to downsize, but their bedroom requirement is 2 because they have that registered living carer, then absolutely we would allow them to move to a 2-bedroom. We do have a lot of people that understandably would prefer to live with their carer, which is often a relative, but they must be registered and supported by social services saying that they require them to live in that property. That threshold is quite high, but as a general answer, yes, we would allow it as long as the evidence is there.
Okay, I think we probably need to call a close on that. If anybody's got any further questions for Josh, I'm sure you'll be prepared to take them later. Thank you. So we now move on to item 10, which is the procurement start. And the first one is kitchen and the bathroom contract. And
Hello, yes, Louisa Cotton, Operational Support Officer. We're seeking approval today in consultation with the board to commence tendering for 3 important work streams that would enable us to continue to provide safe and compliant homes and be the best landlord in the South East. So the first one is for a kitchen and bathroom replacement contractor for a period of up to 4 years on an initial 2-year award with an extension period of +1 dependent on performance. The anticipated value of the contract is up to 12 million over 4 years. Recommended route to market will be through a framework via a mini competition.
are there any questions before I mention? No. The only issue that I see, and it does actually repeat itself in the other 2 contracts and any further procurement contracts, is that there's no mention of tenant engagement. We would, as a tenant panel, we'd like to see an amendment or an addition to that to state that and to encourage full tenant engagement, that the author of these documents will ensure that full engagement with the tenants panel at all stages of the procurement process, from setting standards required and right up to the start and completion of the process and awarding the contract. And we think that would actually give the opportunity for tenants to have their say at the very early in the complete stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has been noted, and Hugh and I were discussing that this morning in reaction to HQN's findings as well. So going forward, tenant involvement will be elevated through every procurement process.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The second work stream is roof replacement contract for a period of up to 4 years on an initial 2-year award with an extension period of +1. The anticipated value of the contract is up to 1.6 million over the 4 years. This will be an open competition in accordance with public procurement regulations.
Any questions? Any observations? Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
And the final work stream will be to award to a specialist contractor for the mitigation and prevention of damp, mould and condensation to council homes. The contract will be for an initial 3-year period with a further extension dependent on performance of +1. The anticipated value of the contract is 1.5 million across the 5 years. Again, this will be an open competition in accordance with public procurement regs.
Thank you very much. No further questions or comments? Thank you. So that will be dealt with by our chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Right. There seems to have been a bit of discrepancy in our 2 papers here, so we need to go back to item. Well, we've got item 9. Item 20, which was the investigation into housing maintenance, but I think we've already covered that with Hugh's statement and Julian's involvement. And it's the housing quality consumer standards review. I'm not sure who's taking that. All right. Thank you.
Damien.
And we invite you to go ahead, Damien.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. I presume that will then come up on your screen in your room, is that right?
That's right, Damien.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'll just put it on slideshow. Okay, hopefully you can see that. As I said in the introduction, I'm Damien Roach, I'm the director at HQN. I carried out the review in conjunction with my colleague Wayne Hughes, who's also on the call here. and we're presenting back to you in summary form the interim headlines from the work we've undertaken so far. I'm aware of this sort of time pressures, so I shall move quickly on. Just by way of introduction, a reminder of why the government's imposing higher standards, why we've got regulatory inspection back on the agenda for the first time in 15 years. You'll all be familiar with the Grenfell disaster 7 years ago now. Subsequent to that, there was a not dissimilar fire at Lacanal House in Southwark in South London. Thankfully, not resulting in as many deaths, but it was clearly a major issue. We also had the death of a young 2-year-old boy in a house in Rochdale that was riddled with damp and mould. And the photo there is of a young man, Kwejo Tweneboa, who's a housing activist who regularly posts exposés of very poor treatment of tenants in very poor conditions. So you'll have seen from social media, print media, television media, a whole host of shocking exposés of housing conditions. And that's why the last government has brought in, or did bring in, the new Social Housing Regulation Act. And it will remain in place under the new Labour government, as you would expect. So what it involves is that as of April this year, there are some revised consumer standards that are all housing providers, social housing providers, whether local authorities such as yourself or housing associations, are obliged to work towards compliance. And the regulator has implemented a 4-year cycle to come and inspect services. It's risk-based, it's assurance-based in terms of their approach. As Hugh said a while ago, you have been selected for inspection. And they'll be coming in the next few weeks. They will give you a rating, a consumer rating, which will vary between C1, meaning you are fully compliant with standards, and C4, where there are very serious failings and fundamental changes required. C2, albeit identifying weaknesses and improvement needed, does count as being compliant. So the minimum standard you would hope to achieve would be C2. So what's the regulator looking for? In simple terms, they will be looking to see, are you meeting those standards? The standards cover pretty much all the services that tenants and low-cost homeowners receive. So repairs, housing management, dealing with ASB, resident engagement, dealing with complaints, etc. A whole host of services that they receive, they'll look across the board. They're seeking assurance that you can evidence your compliance. You've had a report earlier around your areas of safety, gas safety, electrical safety, etc. They'll be looking at that data. They'll be looking behind that data as well to see how you are gaining that assurance. They'll be interviewing councillors, key councillors such as the portfolio holders and the leader, to see how you're receiving the assurance as well. They'll be looking for evidence that you're acting on the customer voice. So that's things like comments coming forward from meetings such as this morning, where residents, tenants and other residents are able to challenge performance, feedback, views, etc. But also looking at other ways that tenants can get involved in feeding back on performance. Ultimately, this is about outcomes for tenants, safe homes, quality services, value for money. Ultimately, the aim is that we do never hopefully see another Grenfell tragedy or anything like it. And where you do not comply with the standards, they're looking for a smart action plan. How are you putting things right, and when are you going to put them right? Okay, just a quick couple of slides on, as I say, the inspections have been in place now since April. We've had a number of reports produced, and these slides in front of you are the first set of reports up until the end of last week. There's been some this week, so those are the numbers in terms of the authorities inspected has increased, but I would say the themes that are arising haven't really changed. They're broadly similar. So we have planned inspections, and I'll explain what I mean by that, because the inspections are happening either because they're planned as part of this new 4-year process or following self-referral. So that's where a local authority or a housing association has carried out self-assessment against the standards and determined that they're significantly deficient. So it might be your gas safety compliance is down at 95%. Serious concern, you pick up the phone to the regulator, or you're expected to. There was one report this week based upon a local authority that had not self-referred, but they did publish their tenant satisfaction measure data. The regulator had taken a look at that and highlighted concerns around fire safety, and they then decided to go and inspect. So there's different ways in which you might be subject to an inspection. All those inspected as part of the planned inspection, local authorities have been rated as C2, i.e. compliant. Those that had self-referred had all been rated as C3, so non-compliant. In terms of positive findings, so compliance outcomes being positive, having a planned approach to addressing damp and mould, having an accurate record of property conditions through physical surveys of your stock and stock information being used to inform your planned maintenance programmes. That you've got a high percentage of homes meeting the decent home standard, you've got an effective, efficient and timely repairs service, and as we've heard again from Hugh and Julian this morning, you've identified concerns in the delivery of your repairs service, so that's a significant challenge for you. The regulator will also be looking to see that your complaints processes are accessible, so easy to complain, that you respond and resolve complaints in a timely fashion, you address weaknesses in complaints management and improving tenant feedback.
Julian,
then,
can I just interrupt? Sorry to interrupt.
Of course you can, Chair.
Unfortunately, we run out of time at 9:30 and have to leave. So could you just wrap up in a minute or so we could have 2 or 3 minutes for questions?
Okay, right. In that case, I will hand over to Wayne, my colleague who looked at safety and quality standard. Wayne.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Good morning, everybody. Very quickly, conscious aware of the comment you just made, Chair. Just to point out that in terms of the consumer standards, it's the safety and quality standard, which is the one that appears to be having the biggest impact on the C ratings being awarded by the regulator. So this is one that's really important to get right. So it's a critical standard. As part of our process, we interviewed some of your staff who are very helpful and clearly committed. There's lots of work going on in the background. We can see that. But there are a number of priorities that flow from the work that we've done. For example, understanding the full extent of your health and safety rating hazards, formalising a plan to bring all the homes up to the decent home standard, a programme to ensure all your properties have a valid energy performance certificate, addressing the backlogs in completing works to ensuring tenants remain safe in their homes, and ensuring that you've got third-party monitoring to ensure an additional level of assurance. Particularly important to you as a board that you receive that external assurance periodically. Next slide, please, Damien. The priorities are very much the ones you've identified already as a board. Clearly there are some challenges with the day-to-day repairs service. That needs to be framed by a repairs policy. The work that was done by the ESG there's some really good information there in terms of what wasn't working, but there wasn't a clear action plan at the time to deal with it. Clearly that's been updated now, and it's good to hear that progress being made there. There's some improved performance required in key areas such as the number of repairs that are completed late, the number of repairs that are cancelled, and addressing the number of calls that the council there are tenant chasing repairs rather than reporting new repairs. Next slide, Damien, please. So that's a
Thanks.
very quick canter through the safety and quality standard. Chair, I hope that wasn't too brief for you. And clearly all these slides are available for people to see outside of the meeting. So at that point, Damien, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you, Wayne, and I'll very, very quickly go through the other 3 slides that we have. The second standard is around transparency.
If you interrupt again, we really
Yeah.
are on the last 2 or 3 minutes. So if we can take 1 or 2 questions, and as your colleague said, we can have these slides on view. Anybody wants to haven't seen them, I'm sure we can arrange for them to see them and notify you of any questions that we may be able to bring up at another time. Thank you. So I'll just take 2 questions. Jackie.
I haven't got a question on that, but I wanted to bring up something before we close the meeting, which is really important, and that is our elderly coming through to the winter. Many of them are not going to get this money to help them through, and the winter fuel allowance. And I just want to ask whether enough information is being given to them through the newsletters, and whether we're actually going to be looking at any help that can be given or any advice, because I'm really, really concerned about our elderly residents.
I think this is important to say we can come back to the next meeting. Firstly, yes, the Reds team are giving that advice and assistance, but we need to, and that also highlights one of the things that Damien's highlighted, that we need a tenancy sustainment policy, i.e. how we help people sustain their tenancy. So that is something that's also going to be coming back to this board. So that links in with the work that Damien's done. But yes, I can't prove it. But yes, the team are giving that help and advice.
Well, I'll take 1 question on the presentation. I just got that minute. No further questions? Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the HQN team. I do apologise for interrupting you and the time we run out, but thank you very much, and I really enjoyed my taking part in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Just close the meeting.
Yep, so it's close the meeting, and the date of the next meeting is Thursday, the 31st of October, and you may see some of you there. Thank you very much.